What's up, guys? MC Stu here, and today we got a quick update from this week's patch notes. It just came out today, and I just wanted to cover this. There wasn't anything major in it, but it touched on some things that really had me hot and going to town on videos a few weeks back with the nerf of the Agony console. We have some updated news on that, and so I just wanted to talk about it and just point out, because I did rail on it, what they've done here. So the update, they've updated the Universal Console Agony Redistributor so that the cap on the damage over time is now raised from 2,000 up to 17,500. So I'm going to link CasualSAB's video. He goes into some good detail comparison between pre-nerf, when it was nerfed, and now this buff. In his assessment, it's okay. So it's in line with many of the other consoles in the game, so that's good. And I am happy that they heard this feedback and addressed the way that they nerfed it. But what I want to see going forward is the communication on this stuff. And at the time when all of this was happening, I was railing on this, not because they nerfed it or balanced it. Those things have to happen. But my issue was that there was no communication prior. So you could have bought the ship a day before for this really good ship and console, but like myself, I got it primarily for the console, and a day later it's been changed. So they were selling items that they had already finished the changes. They hadn't been patched into the game yet. And my issue was that was not communicated once it had entered the queue to be worked on. So at some point, you know, Kale, they don't tell him everything that they're thinking of, but at some point, that went in the schedule to be worked on. These changes were coming, and I'm assuming that was at least a few weeks, if not longer. And I'm also assuming that they knew that this console was massively overpowered prior, because many of us knew, but not everybody. The player base at large did not know that. And so what I would like to see going forward is that as soon as they've identified, hey, this is not doing what we wanted it to, in either direction, is to put it in the patch notes of known issues and list on there, at a minimum, this is not working as intended. Some changes will most likely come to it in the future. So CYA, so you know what you're getting into if you're deciding to purchase a ship. Or, you know, let's say, excuse me, let's say they do that they do that, and a couple weeks later, they've decided, here's what we're going to do to it. Tell us what you're going to do to it before it comes down. Keep us in the loop of what's happening on items that you are currently selling in game. So for me, them fixing this, that's great and everything. But for me, it's really kind of a non-issue. Let's just take a look at what I said at the time here on the live stream of that week. And it extra hurts for me because like 2 days before this, I had used one of my coupons from the event campaign on my free-to-play to pick up the Adamant specifically for this console. And yes, that is a good ship, and I will probably use it at some point. But had there been some information given about this coming down the pipeline, I wouldn't have got it. I would have gotten something else and maybe said, okay, I'll wait till they make some adjustments to it and look and see how it is and get it on next year's, on my free-to-play, that is. So that's really my issue with this. And I think, again, on the podcast tonight, we'll talk more in detail about this. But my issue is really the communication, side of this stuff. And I just, I don't think it's right. I asked my wife, I said, hey, if she's a big Fortnite player, if you bought some like super popular skin in Fortnite and, 3 months later, they changed the way it looked for whatever reason, how would you feel about that? And she said, well, they have done that. And they offered to give me all my money back, every single person. If you had bought this skin, you could get a complete refund if you want to. So, and that's normally the case in most games. Now, I understand that this is the main way they monetize, and, I highly doubt that's going to happen. They're going to give us our money back when they make changes. That just hasn't how it's been in the past. I think that would be the right thing to do. But at this point, I'm not advocating for it. I mean, I'd like to see it. I just don't think it's going to happen. So I'm not going to waste my time with that. But at a minimum, if they could just communicate better about these things, once they enter the queue, they are going to be worked on at a minimum to put them in the known issues that, hey, this isn't working right, we're working on it, it will be changing for me, that would be a much better situation for us when we're looking at spending real life money on items in the game. They haven't addressed the nerf to the weather control ship. They had actually stated that they felt like that was working as intended. And again, whether it is or isn't, I don't want to get caught up in the nerf or if it was OP or whatever the issue is. For me, that's neither here nor there. If they have stated this stuff prior to it actually happening, or once they know, I'm fine with it. If they don't know there's a problem with it and they're selling the ship and they're selling a bunch of them, and then, then they find out, and the moment they find out, that's full transparency. They're letting us know, hey, this isn't operating the way that we intended for it. Now, we could back up farther and say, well, maybe this stuff should be tested better. Maybe these ships should be given to some of, the build masters in the game to see if they can break them and let them run with that stuff so that, they can flesh out these problems before, if they have their own QA team that does that. This happens a lot, guys. There's a lot of things that come out, it's really good, and it gets nerfed. And I understand that has to happen, but, it would be nice if some of this, and maybe a lot of it is caught prior, right? We don't know what we don't know. So there are consoles that come out and there's never anything changed. So let's say that those are them doing it right. And that's a big majority of it. But, I just think that if you're selling ships for real life money and you have decided internally that those are going to change, that information in some way or another needs to be passed on to your consumers, because you're selling us items that will not be the same, once they're updated. I run a garage door business, and if, I sold somebody a door and I was going to install it, 3 months later because it was special order, but I knew that model had been changed and had a different insulation value, but I didn't say anything. I just showed up with a different insulated door, same model. They just, nerfed the insulation value. That customer would kick me out of their house. They'd have a problem, and I would understand that. That would not be right for me to do that. And that's the same kind of thing that happens here when these balancing things are being done without letting us know. So again, just to wrap up, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I'm glad that they did follow through and make some adjustments back on this console. They said they would look at it, and they followed through on that, and I give them kudos for it. What I'd like to see next is them to say, hey, we have a change in policy, and we are going to, as soon as we've identified there's a problem, we're going to make sure you guys know in writing in the known issue section down here. There's one every week. They can just put it in there and just give us little updates. Here's what we're doing, or hey, we fixed this problem and it's going to be rolled out, next week or whatever it may be, so that you don't buy a ship and 2 days later you get patch notes that ship's been, nerfed or changed in some way that you didn't like. And I got a lot of comments, boo-hoo, DPSers, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, imagine if you'd bought a ship because you love the way it looks and you want to fly it, and they change the way it looks a week later after you buying it. It's the same exact thing. Whether you're into DPS or not, it's irrelevant. The nerf is irrelevant. Really, it's a matter of making sure that they're communicating properly to their customers, us, of any kind of changes that they know about that they are currently making to things that they are currently selling us. So I think if we could hear them speak to that a little bit, I would feel a lot better. Even if they say, hey, we're just not going to do that. Okay, fair enough. I'm going to be very selective if I'm spending money, because I have no idea what's going to happen with that product that I bought after I've purchased it. And hopefully, best case, they'll come out and say, hey, we've heard the feedback, and we will do our best to keep you guys in the loop of things that are going to be changed. But I know for a fact there's once they've decided they're going to fix something, there's a schedule, there's time allocated, that kind of thing's all written down. Just share that with us. You don't have to give us all the details. Just let us know that it's being worked on, and it will not be the same in the near future. So I'll go ahead and leave it at that, guys. Again, I'll link CasualSAB's video down in the description. He has a more in-depth breakdown of the pre-nerf, nerf stage, and now the unnerfed or buffed stage, if you want to call it that. So you can take a look at that and see if it is something worth getting or something that you might slot back on your ship again. Because when it was nerfed, it wasn't worth anything. It wasn't worth slotting. So take a look at that. Good info. He breaks down in good detail. And I think that covers it, guys. Until next time, thank you very much for watching, and have a good one.